Welcome back, everybody. We've just finished setting up our pause menu and our main menu, and what we'd like to do now through our game is add a little bit of conventional quality of life for when the player presses the quit button to get a dialogue that confirms that option before they actually leave the game or leave out of the gameplay menu. So we're going to start off by creating a new widget. We're going to come down to our UI over here, and we're going to add a user interface widget blueprint and choose user widget. We're going to name this confirmation. If we do things right, we should be able to have this be a single dialogue option that can be presented in multiple contexts. So inside of my confirmation, I want this to be something that jumps in front of all of the other content in the game to allow the player to focus on the immediate and the irrevocable decision of quitting from their current experience. So we're going to start off by adding a canvas panel, and then I'm going to add a background blur. We'll set that to the full size of the canvas, and we'll set its strength to 10. And then inside of the canvas, I'm going to add a vertical box. This is going to allow us to have the text that would exist for the prompt for the user to quit or not. And then I'm going to add a horizontal box that's going to be holding the options for yes or no. And inside of that box, we're just going to add two buttons, one for yes and another for no. So we'll rename these BTN yes, BTN no, and we'll make sure each of those is a variable that we can interact with. And then let's just size this up and scale it a little bit. I'm going to take my vertical box and align it towards the center of the screen like this, and we're going to distribute the text across the top 60% and the horizontal box across the bottom 40%. And these don't actually need to be percentages, it's just ratios of whatever numbers you leave in there. I'm going to take the horizontal box and we're going to center it, and then we're going to add for these buttons some padding, give a little room, and then for the text, we probably are going to want to increase the size of that text a little bit down here. We'll increase it some, and then we'll just change that to "Are you sure?" And we could leave this as a simple text object, or we could turn this into a variable and modify it in specific context. Ask, "Are you sure you would like to quit to menu? Are you sure you would like to quit the game?" Just in the specific context. You can customize that as you want. And then for our buttons, we're just going to have this be yes, and this one to be no. All right, one other thing we might want to do with this is we're going to take this vertical box, we're just going to wrap it with a border so we can get a little bit of colorized design to contrast this against the blurred background. And I'm going to come down to not the content, because this will affect the shading of all the things inside of the box, which is all this down here, but I'm going to come down to the brush or brush color, and we're just going to change this to kind of a grayscale that's a little transparent. There we go. So this dialog box is going to be added onto the scene whenever we load whatever scene is going to have a confirmation. So "Are you sure?" is going to be what kicks it back. So I'm going to come into the functionality for this in just a second, but we want to make sure that this is being drawn properly. Let's go to see where we're at. We are at our main menu. So we're going to go into our main menu first to set this up. And we're going to, in the beginning play or the pre-construct, event pre-construct is almost the equivalent of begin play for widgets. We're just going to create the widget, choosing the confirmation box. So get player controller is the option we want to reference here. I'm going to do what I normally do, which is promote to variable, and we'll call this confirmation dialog ref. And from there, we're going to add to screen, and we'll just test to make sure this is working correctly. Okay, so this is up on screen correctly, and we're going to do a few things. I don't need to interact with the design for this anymore. Obviously you can, but ultimately we want this dialog box to not appear immediately when we start on, so we want it to change its own visibility. So by default, we can just say set your visibility to collapsed when you're created, And now when I start, it'll automatically hide itself. I don't need to control that somewhere else. So the dialog box knows it shouldn't be shown initially, even when it's created. So setting that visibility here is going to become a problem because now when I click quit, it's still just running that function, and I want it to actually give me that dialog option. So I'm going to expand out this functionality right here. When it says quit, we're going to want to bring up that dialog box. But as a point of consideration for the entire interactive loop, if I choose no for that confirmation, I'm going to want to come back to the original parent. So what I need to do is create a function that will allow me to capture that information and make all those adjustments inside of this confirmation dialog. So I'm going to go and add two functions. I'm going to add one function called isolate and another function called return. And so these are going to be very similar, but they're going to have some slight adjustments in how they're implemented. So for isolate, what I want is the things that are not the dialog box to kind of go away and be hidden, and I want the dialog box itself to be the focus and attention. So we're going to take the isolate and we're going to do two visibility nodes here. I'm going to do one node for the parent, and I'm going to duplicate and do one node for this. When I want this to be visible, the dialog box will pop up, and I want the parent to become collapsed. For isolate, for me to be able to do this, I need to pass in what that parent is. So I need to take a correct object type and get the information. So when isolate gets called, we want to get that parent. So I'm going to pass this over here, and we're going to rename this to parent widget. And I'm going to promote this so we can reference it later in return. So I'm going to promote to a variable that's called parent widget. It's the right type because I grabbed it from all the right spots. And then just hook this up like that. So now when isolate is called, it will find the parent widget, store it as a variable, and then it will set that widget to collapsed and make the current widget of the dialog box set to visible. Let's test that really quickly. Go to quit. Nope, I don't call it, so that would probably be a problem. So let's go to the main menu, and under button quit, we're going to get a reference to our confirmation dialog box, and we're just going to call the function isolate. And for isolate, we're going to pass in our own self-reference. So the self-reference is going to say, hey, whatever is calling it, and that's me, main menu, is going to be removed when we go to isolate. So now when I play and I click quit, this pops up. Perfect. Things are working well so far. Let's start with no in the dialog box because that's probably the most simple to implement. When I click no, I'm going to want to return. So if I go down to no and I click do button click here, I'm going to just want to fire off return. So return is just going to go back and do undo what we did with our isolate. So we're going to take the set visibility and we're going to duplicate this. So set visibility by default, we're going to turn our own visibility to collapsed, and then we're going to get our parent widget reference, and we're going to set this visibility to visible. So now let's go back, quit, and no. I should be able to go back and forth between these things. Things are working out really well. And now when I go to my yes, this is where things are going to get a little bit more complicated. So my button yes has a button clicked option, but this button clicked is only available for the confirmation dialog box. This delegate isn't going to bubble over. It's a common UI term that we have for the main menu. And we could create another delegate, but we really know that we're going to assign that delegate behavior inside of the main menus, so we can just reach into the current dispatcher that we have and reference that here. So if you can recall, the dispatcher we're going to use is called the button clicked. So if I go to my main menu, what I can do now that I've created this confirmation dialog, I can come in here and I can get the button yes. And when I select that, you'll notice I don't have any of the dispatcher options down below, but what I can do is say bind button clicked. So this is going to create a connection that's going to allow me to assign any event to when that button is clicked inside of this. This is a like a deferred delegate. I'm not creating it directly within the object to be called. I'm just saying there is something in there, and I'm reaching in and grabbing the reference to that. So from here, I'm just going to do a custom event and call that confirm selection. So whenever I confirm the selection, it's going to do whatever I would have done otherwise. So if I confirm, then I can run my quit game. So now if I go to test this, I can quit, change my mind, say quit, and then when I press yes, it'll quit the game. So this is really great, and in order to create a more cohesive experience, we're going to replicate this behavior inside of our pause menu. So when I go to my pause screen, you'll notice there's a lot of parallels in the way that this is set up to how my main menu is set up. So when I do pre-construct, I'm also going to add in the same things that I had added in before. So creating these and then promoting that to a variable and then having these references. This is all going to be part of the pattern for what we would expect if you're going to use this deferred delegate. So I'm going to come over here. We're going to create the widget of the right type. We're going to promote this to a variable locally, not a local variable, but within the pause screen as opposed to the main menu. We're going to call this confirmation dialog ref. And then we're going to add that to the player screen if I can click properly. And then just like I did before, I'm going to take this confirmation dialog ref and I'm going to set up an event that's going to bind off of the yes from that. So if I come down here and I say button yes, I'll say bind button clicked, and then do our custom event and confirm selection, whatever that is. If you have more meaningful language for your specific context, then do that. And since this is going to be inside of the pause menu and not the main menu, we don't want to quit the game. We're going to want to open the level for the main menu. So let's hope that I can type this correctly the first time. So now what this will do is when we're in the pause menu, it will generate this blueprint, and then we're going to, when we click quit, this open level by name here, well, we need to defer that slightly. So this one will be over here, and what this one is going to do is going to say from our confirmation dialog, we're going to isolate, and we're going to pass in a reference to self. So the pause menu is saying, hey, whenever you isolate, just remember that you return back to me. So isolate should handle that, and then we will allow for open level when they click the other option. So here, if I click quit and say no, let's go to play. I open up the menu. I can say quit, no. If I say quit, it should bring me back to the main menu, except for we've neglected something inside of this. So for the dialog box, let's see. Add player to screen. Out button yes is never connected, so let's make sure we bind that. Let's try that again. Go play. Quit no. Quit yes takes us back to the main menu. Quit no, and then quit yes takes us out of the game. So a few more nodes, a higher quality of life, a better user experience design. Ideally, this is going to be extensible to a larger platform to allow you to have a number of different types of confirmations, and you understand how deferred delegates work, and that you can reach in and modify whatever you need to call whatever you need to for the user interface. If you design one thing in one area, you should be able to use it multiple times. I hope that it gives you an idea of what you should be approaching with user interface in terms of quality of life, and that it allows you to go out there with this empowerment and keep building.